Cell phones, hey, they contain lots of information as we all know, but what right do you have in those cell phones? And what right do you have if you're a kid? If you're a high school student, well, that takes us to this week's case. Involves a young man, he was in high school. He had been texting in class, he'd been warned not to do that. His teacher saw him texting again and said, guess what, buddy? This is the last straw, you're going to the principal's office. Kid heads off to the principal's office. And his phone was confiscated. When his phone was confiscated, the school authorities looked at it, they downloaded his text messages, looked at the various other information in the cell phone, and as a result of some other problems that he'd been involved in, he was expelled. He was thrown out of school. Well, his parents weren't pleased with that. They brought an action against the school and they said, hey, we think you guys acted badly by virtue of the fact that you engaged in a search of his cell phone, and that's against the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution protects us in our papers and our private matters, and you violated that when, as a government authority, as people who are working on behalf of the public school system, you looked through his cell phone information. School said, no, 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 no. We have a different standard that applies to schools. And that different standard requires that we just have a reasonable suspicion of something going on. We don't have to have probable cause. And that argument is actually correct because under the law, students who are in school have rights under the Constitution, as we're all aware, but those rights are treated a little bit differently than they are with regard to rights possessed by adults, people over 18 years of age. And why? Because, well, frankly, people under 18 don't have quite the same kind of maturity as do people who are over 18 and sometimes need a little more direction in the way in which they are to live their lives. Well, long story short, the school did have that right. And that's what they argued. But the parents of the boy said, you know what, sure, you have a right to inspect the contents of a cell phone or a briefcase or anything else if you have reasonable suspicion. Here, no reasonable suspicion. No evidence he was involved in trading in drugs. No evidence he was going to hurt himself or hurt somebody else. He wasn't bringing any kind of threat to the school. Therefore, you had no reasonable suspicion and you should not have gotten that information. Well, this case, which was filed in federal court, goes all the way up on appeal to a circuit court. And there the circuit court takes a look at it, and the circuit court says, yeah, you're right, school. You do have a right to engage in searches if you have a reasonable suspicion. But, you know, here, the parents of the boy and his lawyers are correct because there was no reasonable suspicion that warranted taking a look at the contents of that cell phone. And therefore, we find that that search is completely unlawful and any information you got in that search cannot be used to suspend the boy or throw him out of school. Okay, so what do we learn from this? What did we learn from this? What we learned from this is that, in fact, people in high school do have constitutional rights. Those constitutional rights, however, are enforced with a little less vigor than they are with regard to adults. But even then, the school has to show a reasonable suspicion in order to engage in searches and seizure of materials that are held by high school students. Here we found they did not have reasonable suspicion, and accordingly the information that they got from this boy's cell phone was not admissible, could not be used in a proceeding to suspend or expel the boy. All right. Hey, we bring you this case as we bring you cases every week so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.